Look, The Great Gatsby is one of the most celebrated novels in the entire world, and it's, especially in America, it's deeply woven into the fabric of the ideas of democracy and the ideas of creating yourself according to your own imagination and your dreams. And I feel like everyone has some sort of connection with Gatsby in a way. We all feel like we're a little bit of a Gatsby in our own right. And I remember reading it as a youth and not really understanding the great tragedy that the novel is as an adult. I remember seeing it as sort of a traditional love story, but in a lot of ways, it's not a love story at all. It's about it's about the corruption of the society that we lived in at that time period and continues to go on and throughout the rest of the world, greed and wealth and the ideas of becoming somebody in a society that is corrupt in a lot of ways. And Jay, only feels like he can hold Daisy's hand if he becomes a multi-billionaire. And he doesn't realize the woman that Daisy is. She's still this green light, she's still this manifestation of his dreams. To me, I really wanted to capture the hollowness or the emptiness of Jay Gatsby. And I remember, like I said, reading him as a youth and seeing this very suave billionaire that had everything under control, but the immense sadness and the tragedy that he represents was something that I didn't quite connect with as a youth. And to be an adult and read this novel, I for the first time feel like I can not only connected with him but understood him. And I really wanted to put a Gatsby up on screen that hopefully portrayed a lot of the nuances and complexity of this very celebrated character. Hopefully I did it justice. I think that, in a lot of ways, Nick is Gatsby's only real friend. And, you look at the end of the movie, and after all the celebrated parties, Gatsby becomes, a rejected part of, of page 6. And nobody wants to go to his parties anymore. Nobody wants to show up to his funeral, and he has no real friends. And Nick has this real sort of fascination with this guy. He sees the corruption of wealth in this world in the 1920s in New York, in that time period in New York, and sees this sort of blue blood royal hierarchy going on. And Gatsby, he feels like, is a part of that world, and he realizes that he's the only one with any real intentions or good intentions, or did things for the right reasons. And he connects and is fascinated with Gatsby, and is the only one at the end of the day that is, a true friend to him. A lot of it had to do with reading Trimalchio, which was the original book that Fitzgerald wrote, and sort of putting together a lot of the pieces that were left out in The Great Gatsby. Like I said, everyone that reads this novel has their own interpretation of all of these characters and has their own interpretation of the book, and they feel so deeply connected with this world. They feel, the way Fitzgerald writes this book, you feel like you're in the room with these people. So it's a big challenge to try to do a film wherein you have to be much more specific about your portrayal of the characters and the world that Fitzgerald wrote. So Trimalchio was a great help to us in connecting a lot of these different pieces, because as a novel, what makes The Great Gatsby so great is what is taken out. It's what's edited and what's left for the interpretation of the reader. So for us, it was about going deeply into what Fitzgerald intended and trying to bring some of that out again for a lot of scenes that, sort of trail off. And, for example, the plaza sequence sort of just trails off and says Gatsby muttered some words to Daisy in the corner, and everything sort of dissipated, and all of a sudden everything disappeared. Where, well, cinematically, you have to make specific choices, and Trimalchio helped us sort of reconnect those pieces doing the movie. Well, we met a lot of different girls for that role, and Daisy's an incredibly complex character because she's not only this youthful ideal of innocence and youth in Gatsby's eyes, but she turns out to be a very morally corrupt person, and Gatsby doesn't see it. The audience sees it, everyone else sees it, but Gatsby's fixated on this idea, this angelic image of who Daisy Buchanan is. And we needed an actress that could capture both of those things, that great duality. And Carey Mulligan has the sophistication as an actress and as a person to be able to put that up on screen. So she was really the one and only choice after we met her. It was. Besides Toby and Carey and myself, the entire cast was really Australian. And, Joel especially, him coming in, it was a great search for Tom Buchanan because, he needed to be this brute force to clash up against Gatsby. And I just really admired not only Joel's, but everyone in Australia's work ethic. I mean, it really felt like we were in a theater district. All these actors worked so incredibly hard and are so committed to doing great performances and never give up. Joel was really a revelation as well in that regard. But the entire Australian cast was amazing. Their work ethic is really unmatched in my eyes. I've always known Baz as a Gatsby type in a lot of ways. He's this great dreamer. He's a man that is really created his own life according to his own imagination. And it was only fitting that he do this novel. And I've known him for 20 years, ever since we did a sort of test rehearsal for Romeo and Juliet. And I've always been inspired by him, his enthusiasm for the art that he's creating, and his incredible commitment and work ethic to doing great pieces of film. And that is infectious. When you meet Baz, you're riveted, you're nostalgic, you want to be a part of the adventure. And he hasn't changed in that regard. And he's not somebody that shies away from challenges. He's taken on Romeo and Juliet, Shakespeare, and now Fitzgerald with The Great Gatsby, and he's not afraid to, flip it on its side and reinvent the whole genre, and yet at the same time retain the sort of intimate power of the words of the great writers that he puts up on screen. What I was most proud of is as much as the world was recreated, and as much as Baz infused hip hop and all kinds of other different elements that connect with a modern day audience, at the end of the day he was committed to, and we were all committed to, trying to give the best version of The Great Gatsby according to Fitzgerald's words that we possibly could. And that was the first conversation that we had. That's going to be the Bible. And the process for us was getting as close to Fitzgerald's true intent for these characters as we possibly could. And then that would remain consistent throughout the entire filming. So in a lot of ways, I'm very proud of the movie. I think that we got very close, as close as we possibly could, to doing the novel justice.